Life often throws us into tumultuous seas, doesn't it? Moments where our carefully laid plans shatter, our hopes dwindle, and we're left questioning everything. We pray for rescue, for a sign, for just a sliver of light. But sometimes, all we feel is an overwhelming darkness, a crushing silence. It's in these desperate times that faith is truly tested. But what if the very obstacles that seem to destroy us are, in fact, the precise instruments of our salvation? What if the universe has a grander design, unfolding through the chaos, waiting to reveal itself when we least expect it? Our story begins far out on the vast, unforgiving expanse of the ocean. A magnificent merchant vessel laden with precious cargo sliced through the sapphire waves. A seasoned seafarer, Elias, was on board, his mind anticipating trade and reunion. But the sea, in its capricious nature, had other plans. Without warning, a colossal tempest descended with terrifying ferocity. Winds howled, tearing at sails, snapping masts. The ship became a toy in the churning maw of the storm. Waves crashed over the deck, sweeping men and cargo into the abyss. Elias clung desperately to a splintered piece of wood, the roar of the gale deafening, the icy grip of the ocean pulling at his soul. He watched in horror as the mighty ship succumbed, swallowed by the raging sea. He was alone, adrift in a watery hell, consciousness slipping away. Days later, Elias stirred. A dull ache throbbed, his limbs felt like lead. He opened his eyes to a blinding, unfamiliar sun, the gentle sound of waves replacing the tempest's roar. He was lying on a deserted island, a verdant fringe of palm trees marking a pristine beach. There was no sign of the shipwreck, no trace of his companions. Just him, the endless ocean, and the stark beauty of absolute isolation. His heart hammered. He pushed himself up, scanning the horizon. Nothing. Miles of shimmering sea, an unbroken line against the sky. A profound terror seized him. He was marooned, lost, completely alone. A guttural cry escaped his lips, vanishing into the vastness. He fell to his knees, burying his face in the warm sand, and began to pray. "O great architect of the cosmos," he whispered, "please send me help. A ship, a sign, I beg you." He spent the entire day consumed by supplication, his eyes scanning the horizon until the sun dipped below the waves. But no help arrived. The first few days were a blur of intense prayer, ceaseless scanning of the sea, and a gnawing hunger. Each sunrise brought a sliver of renewed hope, quickly extinguished by the relentless, empty horizon. Each sunset deepened the despair. Elias, a man of profound faith, felt it waver, then fracture. Had his prayers gone unheard? Had he been abandoned? The island, initially a potential refuge, began to feel like a pristine prison. His mind replayed the storm, the screams, the sinking ship, a tormenting loop. He stopped praying, not out of defiance, but from a crushing sense of futility. What was the point? His patience had evaporated, replaced by a desperate, simmering frustration. The silence of the universe felt like a direct answer. No. No help, no hope, just the slow, agonizing march towards an uncertain end. He felt a profound sense of injustice, a bitter resentment bubbling beneath his exhaustion. After nearly a week of paralyzed hopelessness, a primal instinct for survival reasserted itself. If no one was coming, he would have to become his own rescuer. He forced himself to move, to observe, to adapt. He discovered a freshwater spring, a small miracle that reignited a faint ember of determination. Driven by hunger, he began the arduous task of foraging. He learned to identify ripe coconuts, hacking at them with a sharp stone. He fashioned a makeshift spear from a sturdy branch, patiently waiting to ambush unsuspecting fish in the tide pools. Every calorie was a victory, every drop of water a blessing. The sheer physical exertion became a balm, dulling the sharper edges of his emotional torment. He gathered fallen branches, dragging them one by one, and began to construct a rudimentary shelter, a lean-to offering a modicum of protection. It was crude, but it was his. It was a testament to his will, a small, defiant act. About 15 to 20 days crawled by in this painstaking routine. The rhythm of survival had taken over. He had given up on rescue entirely. He refined his shelter, weaving fronds into a slightly more substantial hut, a small bastion against the vast emptiness. One sweltering afternoon, Elias ventured deeper into the jungle, seeking a new source of coconuts. His mind focused on the day's meal. As he turned to begin his long trek back to his small encampment, a faint wisp of smoke caught his eye. He squinted, a flicker of unease stirring within him. But then the wisp grew, thickening, darkening, twisting into an unmistakable column against the brilliant blue sky. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through his exhaustion. He dropped his armload of coconuts and began to run, scrambling over roots and through dense foliage, a desperate premonition gripping his heart. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he pushed himself harder, the smoke plume growing ever larger, ever more menacing. When he finally burst through the last line of trees, gasping for breath, the sight that greeted him stole it completely. His hut, his meticulously built, hard-won shelter. It was engulfed in a raging inferno, flames licking greedily at the dry branches and fronds, sending sparks dancing into the sky. In mere moments, his only refuge, his symbol of survival, was reduced to a pile of smoldering ash. A primal scream tore from Elias's throat. He stood frozen, staring at the destruction, tears blurring his vision. All his effort, all his desperate struggle, vanished in a puff of smoke. His few possessions, a crude fishing spear, a collection of smooth stones, all gone. He sank to his knees, utterly defeated. He looked up at the sky, his face streaked with tears and soot, his voice raw with anguish. "Why? Oh, great architect, why?" he bellowed. "I begged for your help, and you offered none. I built my own sanctuary, my only protection, and you, in your infinite cruelty, burned it to the ground. What have I done to deserve this? Why are you so merciless?" He railed against the heavens, his anger a hot, corrosive force. The injustice felt unbearable. He had faced the storm, survived the wreck, battled starvation, and just when he found a sliver of stability, it was snatched away. Not by nature's caprice, but seemingly by a divine hand. He spent the entire night huddled on the scorched earth, shivering, consumed by blame, despair, and utter hopelessness. Exhaustion, both physical and emotional, finally claimed him, and he drifted into a troubled, dreamless sleep. The early morning light brought no solace. Elias slowly awakened, his body stiff, his mind heavy with the weight of the previous night's devastation. As he rubbed the sleep from his eyes, a strange sound pierced the usual tranquility of the island. It wasn't the rhythmic crash of waves or the cry of a distant bird. It was a deep, resonant rumble accompanied by a rhythmic thudding. He sat bolt upright, his heart leaping into his throat. He squinted towards the sea, not daring to hope. But there it was, a silhouette growing larger with each passing second, emerging from the hazy horizon. A ship, a real bona fide ship, its sails unfurled, heading directly towards his deserted island. Disbelief warred with a sudden, overwhelming surge of adrenaline. He scrambled to his feet, barely registering the pain, and raced towards the shore, waving his arms wildly, letting out hoarse, joyous shouts. The ship drew closer, its anchor dropping with a mighty splash. A smaller boat was quickly lowered, and several men began rowing towards him. Overjoyed, Elias wasted no time, practically leaping aboard. He was saved. Once safely on the deck of the impressive vessel, Elias, still shaking with emotion, sought out the captain. "How?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "How did you know I was here? How did you find me on this deserted island?" The captain, a stern but kind-faced man, looked at him with a knowing smile. "It was quite extraordinary, really," the captain began. "We were charting a course far to the south, but last night an unusual plume of smoke, a definite signal fire, caught our attention on the horizon. It was massive, unmistakable, rising high into the night sky. We altered our course immediately, recognizing it as a distress signal from this very island. We realized someone must be stranded here, so we came to rescue you." As the captain spoke the words signal fire and massive, unmistakable, rising high, Elias froze. The captain's words echoed in his mind, merging with the searing image of his burning hut from the previous day. Suddenly, a wave of understanding, profound and breathtaking, washed over him. The fire, his burning hut, the destruction that had pushed him to the very brink of despair, the event he had cursed as divine cruelty, was, in fact, the very beacon that had brought his salvation. The smoke, the very thing he had railed against, had been the universe's answer to his prayers. In that moment, a profound realization settled upon Elias. His understanding of the universe, of faith, of suffering, shattered and reformed. He saw the intricate, often inscrutable design at play. The disaster of his shipwreck, the abandonment of his prayers, the destruction of his shelter, all were interconnected threads in a tapestry far grander than his limited human perspective could ever grasp. His burnt hut, the source of his deepest anguish, was not an act of divine punishment, but an act of divine intervention. It was the necessary catalyst for his rescue, a brilliant, desperate signal orchestrated by a wisdom beyond his comprehension. He realized that his own plans, his desperate attempts to build a life on the island, were small and insufficient compared to the sweeping, perfect blueprint of his Creator. He had blamed, he had doubted, he had railed against what he perceived as cruelty, only to discover it was the ultimate act of love and deliverance. A wave of humility, gratitude, and profound remorse washed over him. He sank to his knees, not in despair this time, but in a silent, heartfelt prayer of thanks. He sought forgiveness for his impatience, for his anger, for his weakening faith in the face of adversity. He understood then that true faith wasn't just believing when things went well, but trusting implicitly even when everything seemed to go horribly wrong. Now, reflect on your own life. How often do we, like Elias, find ourselves caught in similar storms? Perhaps not a literal shipwreck, but a job loss, a broken relationship, a health crisis, or the crushing weight of unmet expectations. In these moments of profound difficulty, doesn't our faith start to waver? We pray, we hope, we desperately seek a clear path. But when the answers aren't immediate, or worse, when another fire seemingly destroys our last hope, our patience dwindles. We start to complain, to question, even to blame the very powers we once held sacred. We interpret setbacks as punishment, as evidence of abandonment, or simply as cruel twists of fate. We become so consumed by the immediate pain, by the loss of our hut, that we fail to see the larger picture unfolding around us. We forget that the universe, or a higher power, often works in ways we cannot possibly fathom, using unexpected channels to guide us, even through what appears to be utter devastation. We don't realize the magnificent, intricate plans constantly being woven for us. We cannot, with our finite minds, ever truly predict the wisdom of the unseen hand that guides all things. Consider the immense precision with which the natural world operates, the delicate balance of ecosystems. If such meticulous care is given to every creature, how much more so to us, individual beings with consciousness and purpose? That guiding force knows precisely what we need and exactly when to provide it. What looks like an end might just be a dramatic turn, a redirect. What feels like a punishment might be a precise calibration, setting us on a course we never would have chosen, but one that leads to greater good. The very struggle you endure might be refining you, preparing you, or signaling for the rescue you desperately await. Don't mistake the silence for absence or the challenge for defeat. So, whenever your carefully constructed plans seem to fail, whenever your metaphorical hut goes up in flames, take a deep breath. Instead of immediately falling into despair or resentment, try to pause. Shift your perspective. What if this setback isn't a dead end, but a necessary detour? What if this closure isn't an ending, but the powerful start of something new? The universe doesn't always provide comfort in the way we expect. Sometimes its greatest gifts arrive disguised as hardships, as challenges that force us to grow, to adapt, to open ourselves to possibilities we never considered. Your perceived loss could be creating the very opportunity for rescue, for revelation, for a profound new direction you couldn't have envisioned while clinging to the familiar. Every single fire in your life, no matter how devastating it feels in the moment, could be a signal flare, a message sent out into the vastness calling forth the very help you need. Remember Elias and his burning hut. His moment of ultimate despair was precisely the catalyst for his salvation. So, whenever things don't go your way, whenever the path ahead seems obscured by smoke and ash, have faith. Hold on to that unwavering belief that there is always a plan for you, a greater purpose unfolding. Before one door closes, another, often grander one, is already opening, sometimes in ways we simply cannot perceive until the smoke clears. Never lose hope. Never surrender your trust. The very darkness you face might be illuminating the path to your greatest light. Trust the process, trust the journey, and know that even in the flames, a message of rescue is being sent.